Today we're going to be talking about something that actually separates those people who live authentically from those who live in regret. The courage to actually know your values and honor them in every single decision that you make. What if I told you that the same courage that drove people like Rosa Parks or even Martin Luther King and any other world changer that you can think of is the same courage that you actually need to navigate your everyday choices? And stay with me here because what I'm going to be talking about in this video is actually going to shift how you make your every decision going forward. So first of all, my name is Eva. I'm a certified soul realignment and quantum flow practitioner. And basically, with soul realignment and quantum flow, I help you release any inner blocks, anything that's been keeping you stuck, your patterns, your traumas, your emotional wounds that have been keeping you stuck, repeating the same repetitive negative loops over and over again in different areas of your life. And by releasing these blocks, I'll help you actually gain more clarity, tap into your purpose, just get more clear about your life, and actually do this from a place of inner peace, mental and emotional stability, and so much more. But more on that at the end of this video. Today, I want to talk about courage. And the reason why I want to talk about this is I found myself just this week thinking about and really admiring the people who've actually had the courage to stand on their own truth, regardless of the entire world being against them. I mean, just think about it. Think of how much courage, how much bravery you will have to actually make decisions that millions or even thousands of people might actually, attack you for. And still, even with the attack, having the courage to stand your ground because you know that to be your truth, whether they support you or not. That's never an easy path for anyone to take. I mean, again, look at the different world changes we've had in the world. People who actually started by making such small, powerful, very impactful decisions that ended up becoming such huge movements and changing so much of how society operated. I mean, the people I can think of right now that will be a best example for that will be someone like Rosa Parks who refused to just stand up, when she was asked to give up her seat for another passenger, right? She said no. Why is that? How do these people, or how are they actually able to stand their ground, regardless of whether they're going to be attacked for it? And some of these world changes we're talking about, remember that their path was never easy. They ended up getting arrested. They ended up just with so much pain being inflicted on them just for them standing up for what they believed in. That's not easy. And that's the courage I want to talk to you about. Because when it comes to courage, I don't want you to think about it like a global or world perspective, because sometimes people tend to assume that courage is only for the chosen ones, the so-called leaders. And then we forget that even in our own lives, there are certain decisions that we need to make every single day that actually require us to tap into that level of courage. So how do you navigate those kind of choices? When you maybe need to speak up, maybe against something in your workplace or even in your family, maybe you need to even speak up just to set your boundaries. That takes courage. That's never easy. So I'm going to be sharing with you in this video just basically tools and tips you can use to help you really navigate and really cultivate tapping into this courage. So first thing that I'd want you to do is know your values. Values, is something that I'm big on because values is how you actually navigate your everyday life. It impacts the decisions you make, the where you spend your money, where you spend your time, and all of that. So I'll give you an example. Like if your whole thing is about you value having fun and entertainment, it means that regardless of what's happening in your life, regardless of how busy you are, it doesn't matter. You're always gonna make time for play. If you think it's about family, it means that even when the whole world is just going bollocks or something, you're always gonna be making time for your family, come rain, come sunshine. Your values are actually determine how you spend your day-to-day life, the kind of choices you make. So knowing your values in this case is when you know what you stand for, what you truly value, what's really important to you, it's gonna help you make every decision, right? Because basically, what this means is when you know your values, it's going to require you to have a certain level of discernment while tapping into these values with everyday choices that you make. Think about someone like Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, or even Wangari Maathai, right? These weren't people who are born with superhuman courage or in any sense, right? Ordinary, everyday people just like you and me. They were ordinary humans who faced direct affronts to their freedom. They were persecuted, they were attacked for what they stood for, they were ridiculed, and all of that. And still, even with all of that that was happening outside of them, they still chose to fight on for what they valued. Why? Because basically, they were really crystal clear on what mattered most to them. I mean, when you look at Rosa Parks, what mattered to her was the dignity and the equality and bringing e- that level of thinking into the society that she was living in at the time, right? It wasn't fair for just because of her color for her to have to give up her seat to someone else just because of race. So she stood up for what she valued, for what mattered most to her. And it didn't matter how many times she got attacked or what even happened to her, she stood her ground, even when she knew the consequences she was going to face at the end of it all. I mean, think about someone like Wangari Maathai, someone who actually ended up winning a Nobel Prize, Peace Prize, and that didn't come easy. This woman will go against a very, very dictatorship government, right? She was getting arrested, she was getting terrorized, and all of that. And still, she chose to fight for what she believed in. She chose to fight for the environment because she loved nature. And she started an entire movement, regardless of how much she was attacked. Why? Because that is what she valued most. So when you have this level, when you have this discernment, this knowledge of what you actually value, then when it comes to your everyday choices, it's going to help you navigate that easy. So tapping into this level of courage you're talking about, it becomes easier when you know what you stand for. So for example, if your thing is that you stand for authenticity or integrity, it does not matter. Even when people around you are ridiculing you maybe for what you believe in or just for you being yourself, it doesn't matter because you value being a person of integrity. You value that more than anything. It doesn't matter even if you're going to make choices that go against what the people around you are all about. It doesn't matter if you're going to show up and sometimes people are going to laugh at you, maybe because of the way you dress, maybe because of the way you talk, because that's your authentic self. And your value in that case will be authenticity. If your value is, for example, family, it doesn't matter if you have this group of friends who are trying to peer pressure you just to go out and have fun. And maybe you had made a promise to your family that I was going to spend time with them. Because you value your family, you're going to have the courage to say no and set those boundaries because you know your values. So, this is how you can start tapping into the level of courage that some of these world changers had in your own day to day life choices. And the second way I want you to navigate this is also know and own that whatever consequences that you're going to face from making that decision is all going to land on you. Because what you find with most people is that when they lack the courage, because again, it's going to go against the people around them. And sometimes it's usually easy to just conform, easy to just go along with the crowd, because then you're not going to have a lot of mass and a lot of fuss. I mean, again, going back to these world changers, if Rosa Parks just chose to do the simple thing, which was just to stand and let someone else sit on her seat, she will probably not have had to go through the trouble she went through for making that decision. If Wangari Maathai just decided, you know what, I'm just not going to take care about the environment so much, I just want to live in peace and all of that, then all that was actually done to her will never have happened. So but at the end of it all, just because they chose to stand up and fight, look at everything that happened as a result of that. Now, again, I'm not talking about making decisions that impact the world in such a big way, but please know that whatever choices that you make, wherever you choose to stand your ground, the person who's going to own or actually handle the consequences of those choices is you. I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm just saying that whatever choices you make, let it or be aware of you're the only person who's going to have to bear the consequences for that. And I mean that You're the person who's going to have to look at yourself in the mirror. You're the person who's going to be going to bed at sleep and wondering, did I make the right decision or not? You're the one who's going to have to evaluate yourself and really determine, can I make peace with the kind of path that I chose? So yes, you could decide to just go easy on yourself, right? And just not do anything that will, make or cause unnecessary friction in your life. And that's well and good. But it might also mean that you'll end up miserable and exhausted and people taking advantage of you and all of that just because you did not have the courage to stand your ground and stand up for what you believed in. So yes, maybe you could see a coworker going through something which 1,000% is unfair. And you choose, you know what, I'm going to honor my peace and I'm not going to say anything. Well and good. You're very entitled to that. But the consequences of that is that the same thing that happens to the coworker might eventually end up touching on you just because you didn't speak up initially. Do you understand what I mean? So, whatever actions you make, please know that the person who's actually going to end up bearing those consequences is yourself. So, make choices that actually align with the kind of consequences you're comfortable facing in the future. Because you're the one who's going to get to go to bed every night thinking about that, and you need to be happy with whatever decisions you make, and you need to be okay with whatever happens after that. Sometimes, yes, it could end up having very horrible repercussions coming your way. Again, with the example of Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King and Wangari Maathai, who are getting arrested, losing everything they loved, and all of that, but they still chose to stand their ground, right? But at the end of it all, what was the result of that? Starting an entire movement that ended up actually bringing more equality and more dignity to the Black race in America because of what Rosa Parks decided to do. Wangari Maathai made such a huge difference in the environment, ended up winning a Nobel Peace Prize just because she chose to stand her ground. She was bearing, she was willing to bear the consequences of whatever was coming at her because she knew what she valued and she was going to stand up for that no matter what. So, again, I'll repeat, make choices whose consequences you are very comfortable dealing with at the end of it all. Know why you're doing it, going back to the values, right? Because that is what actually helps you determine what is the right course of action, right? And the third thing I want you to think about is also learning to trust your intuition. So you find that most people have a very hard time actually knowing or tuning into that inner guidance. But this is actually something you can actually train yourself to tune into. To actually know, when I go down this path, is it going to bring me more of what I want or not? Again, going back to the example of Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, obviously, when you're making those kind of decisions, your intention is that isn't, or your desire in that case is not to get arrested. You know it's a possibility, but you're not going into it thinking that I hope I get arrested today for this. No, you're hoping that things turn out right. But how do you know whether things are gonna go your way or not? Because the other thing is that you might face attack and ridicule for whatever choices you make. Are you willing to actually stand your ground? Because at the end of that, at the end of you being forged by fire, there's a whole treasure waiting for you. So the best way to actually know that is by following that inner guidance, because sometimes you're gonna be forced to make decisions that just don't make sense to anyone else outside of you. You're going to be told to stand when most people are sitting. You're going to be told use your voice when most people have been told stay silent because that's what your inner guidance is calling you to do. So remember your inner guidance from your higher self. Your spirit will always see a higher or a further perspective than you can perceive with your mind. So yes, the immediate results around you might not look like the kind of results that you'd want to have, meaning, yes, you're getting attacked and ridiculed and all of that, but your higher self, your inner guidance is able to know that if you can just stand your ground, you're going to end up with the Nobel Peace Prize at the end of it all. You're going to end up creating such a huge difference for your community and all of that at the end of it all. You just need to hold on a little bit longer. It's not easy to navigate such paths on your own. So tap into your inner guidance. And remember, this is something, again, you can train yourself to tap into. This is something that I actually guide you to actually help you tune in and help you clear all those things that have been blocking you from hearing that inner guidance through my 6 weeks course. Okay. So I'm going to be giving you practical tools and tips that you can be using to help you release all these patterns. Because remember, if you have a lot of drama, a lot of trauma, a lot of emotional wounds and pain and all of that that you've experienced in your life all the way from childhood, and there's still the memory of that is still recorded within your body, you haven't done any kind of healing to release these patterns from within you. The ability for your soul's voice, your inner guidance to actually come through, remember, it has to wade through all this murkiness of all these things, all these blocks, all these patterns that you've created in your life. So hearing that guidance is actually going to be really hard for you. So you gotta clear it out first of all in order to be able to tap into what is the right course of action. Because again, sometimes it's not gonna make sense to your logical mind, but because you are self-compressive way further than you, they'll know. Stick to it, stand your ground, because at the end of it all, there's a whole bunch of treasure that is beyond anything you'll ever picture. You never get to do that if you don't hold your ground. So again, learning to trust your intuition, right? I'll give you another example that I actually found out, which I found to be so interesting when researching this topic today. So when there are two individuals I love to highlight, and I'm gonna massacre their names because they're foreign. So one of them was this guy by the name of what is his name? Sorry, I'm actually gonna check it out. So his name was Vasily Arkhipov. So this guy, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, was the only person who was actually standing between humanity and the nuclear war, because his gut actually told him that something was wrong when he was told to launch missiles against I think it was the American troops at the time. And he chose to trust his intuition and refuse to order a nuclear strike that will literally have ended up with such huge repercussions and probably the end of civilization as we know it. This is just one man. Very easy in that moment. You're at war and your enemies are, you're perceiving that maybe they might be attacking you, and everyone around you, all your instincts will say, fire the missile, order the strike. And this person was like, hold on, wait a minute, listened to their gut and decided not to do that. And just by tuning into that, we were saved from a whole nuclear war. The other person was another officer called Petrov, who actually detected what happened to appear like American missiles coming towards their way. And basically, protocol demanded that he was supposed to report it, because reporting it then will have ended up in triggering another nuclear retaliation. But again, his intuition told him that something wasn't right with this. And guess what? It was actually true. He declared this to be a false alarm, and just by doing that, prevented a whole other mess, a whole other war that could have ended up with such disastrous consequences. And how was he able to do this? Just from following his intuition. So this is literally what your intuition does for you. It's never gonna make sense to the people around you. It's gonna go against everything you know to be true. But that inner guidance can save you from a whole lot of misery in the long run. So learning to tune into this voice is really important. And going back to what I was talking about in the soul element and quantum flow courses, this is actually what I guide you to do. So first of all, with soul element, I'm actually gonna be helping you determine what has been helping you or keeping you stuck in the same repetitive pattern, constantly attracting the same kind of situation, just dressed in different people, or attracting the same kind of people over and over again and repeating the same patterns again and again in different areas of your life. So it's so relevant to actually get into the root cause of this. And the next thing is that I actually help you get in touch and actually remember who you really are beyond all this pain, beyond all these patterns, because so many people have forgotten their authentic, beautiful, authentic self expression. So it's all element I'm going to be helping you claim that for yourself, helping you gain true clarity. This is who I am. this is what I'm here to do. This is what I can use to navigate my current physical experience and actually be able to create more of what I want. And then again, you're going to be getting to tap into healing with the Akashic record. So releasing all these patterns at an energetic level and actually getting information on what you can now, the choices you need to make going forward so that you don't start creating the same patterns again and again. And then with quantum flow, which is such a beautiful, beautiful technique that involves breathwork, standing movement. What basically we're going to be doing is that I'm going to be helping you release the memory of this pain within your body. Because most people, when it comes to their healing process, or their healing journey, they mostly focus on just working in their mind with the meditation and all of that. And they refuse or forget to incorporate the entire being into their healing process. Because a lot of the pain and a lot of the trauma that you've endured in your life, your body still has a memory of that. And with quantum flow, we're going to be targeting your physical, your mental, your emotional, your spiritual, your energetic well being with various practices that you can tap into to help you release all these blockages. So we're literally working in all these facets of your life or areas of your life in each session. And by doing that, clearing all these murkiness that have been blocking your body, that guidance from your higher self, from your spirit, for your inner guidance, whatever you call it, it's going to be able to come through to you much more clearly. And this is what I help you do in the next 6 weeks if you book my frequency recalibration program with me. And there is so much more that's going to come in this program. So if you're curious about this, maybe you want to know more and you're like, this kind of sounds like something I might be interested in. I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to invite you to book a discovery call with me.